Most people want to believe getting back together will fix everything. They think time apart has changed things, that love is enough, that this time it'll finally work. But here's the truth. If the foundation was broken, no amount of nostalgia will rebuild it. People don't miss you as much as they miss the feeling you once gave them. And that feeling fades fast when the same old problems resurface. The heart loves to lie. It tells you to chase comfort, not growth. But your peace will tell you the truth. Sometimes what you call second chances are just emotional loops pulling you back into pain you already escaped. In this video, I'll show you the signs that getting back together isn't healing. It's self-sabotage. Because some connections aren't meant to be rekindled. They're meant to teach you what never to accept again. Point 1. You're in love with the memory, not the reality. This is the most common trap after a breakup. You're not missing the person, you're missing the feeling. You're in love with the memory of who they were at the beginning, not who they became at the end. The late-night conversations, the laughter, the butterflies, those moments replay in your head like a highlight reel. But what you're conveniently forgetting is the arguments, the cold silences, the disrespect, and the exhaustion that came after. Your brain edits the movie. It skips the scenes that hurt and replays the ones that made you feel alive. And that's why you start to believe that maybe, just maybe, getting back together would bring that feeling back. But here's the truth, it won't. People rarely change in the way your emotions hope they will. The same patterns that broke you before will reappear, just dressed differently. You'll think it's progress until the same argument repeats, the same insecurities return, and the same wounds reopen. That's not growth. That's déjà vu disguised as destiny. If you have to romanticize the past to justify the reunion, it's not love. It's attachment. Real love moves forward. Attachment keeps you stuck replaying old chapters, hoping for a new ending that never comes. Here's the psychological twist. When you're lonely, your brain filters memories through emotion, not logic. It exaggerates the good and minimizes the bad, tricking you into believing it was better than it was. That's nostalgia talking, not truth. If you truly sit down and remember the entire relationship, the miscommunication, the frustration, the emptiness, you'll realize you're not missing them. You're missing how you felt when they made you feel wanted. So before you text them, before you reopen that door, ask yourself, are you drawn to who they are now, or are you chasing who they used to be? Because if you're clinging to a version of them that no longer exists, you're not trying to rebuild love. You're trying to resurrect a ghost. And ghosts can't love you back. Let the memory fade, and let the lesson stay. Because sometimes, moving forward isn't about finding something new. It's about refusing to relive what already broke you once. Point 2. The apology sounds good, but the pattern hasn't changed. When an ex says all the right things, I've changed, I'm different now, I know what I did wrong, it's tempting to believe them. You want to think this time will be better. You want to believe that the pain you went through actually taught them something. But here's the problem. Words are easy. Patterns are not. Anyone can sound healed when they're lonely. The real question isn't what they say. It's what they repeat. An apology without changed behavior is just manipulation in disguise. Maybe they're calmer now, more self-aware, or even saying things they never would have said before. But give it time. If the foundation of who they are hasn't changed, their insecurity, their ego, their emotional immaturity, it'll all resurface once the comfort returns. Because people don't transform in weeks. They only adapt long enough to get what they want back. That's not growth, that's strategy. Here's the truth you need to face. Love doesn't fix patterns, accountability does. If they truly learned from the past, you wouldn't have to hope for change. You'd see it. They'd communicate differently. They'd handle conflict better. They wouldn't try to pull you back with guilt or nostalgia. They'd respect your boundaries. But if they're still playing the same emotional games wrapped in new words, that's not a healed partner. It's the same problem dressed in better grammar. And this is where you must be brutally honest with yourself. Are you giving them another chance because they proved growth, or because you miss them? Because your heart can make you blind to red flags you already tripped over before. If their apology makes your chest feel warm, but their actions still make your stomach uneasy, trust the unease. It's your body remembering what your heart wants to forget. So before you say yes to the reunion, pause. Don't ask, have they changed? Ask, have their patterns changed when nobody's watching? Because the same behavior that broke you once will break you twice. And this time, you won't be able to call it a mistake. You'll have to call it a choice. Point 3, you want closure, not connection. This one hurts the most because it hides behind logic. You tell yourself you're just talking again to see where things stand, to get clarity, or to finally close the chapter. But deep down, you're not looking for closure. You're looking for comfort. You're trying to soothe the wound that they left, hoping that by reopening communication, the pain will somehow make sense. But closure doesn't come from another conversation. It comes from accepting that some people will never give you the apology or the ending you deserve. When you reach back out under the illusion of closure, what you're really doing is reattaching yourself to the same cycle you already escaped. You want to hear that they still think about you, that they regret losing you, that they never stopped caring. But here's the harsh truth. If they truly valued you, you wouldn't have needed closure in the first place. Love doesn't require explanations once it's real. It only demands them when it's broken. And when something's broken beyond repair, talking about it doesn't heal. It reopens the wound. The brain craves resolution. It hates unfinished stories. That's why you replay every message, every argument, every last look, trying to decode what went wrong. But sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is accept that you won't get answers. Because even if they gave you one, it wouldn't satisfy the ache. What you're craving isn't logic. It's emotional reassurance. You want to feel like it mattered. But if you keep chasing closure through connection, you'll confuse temporary peace with true healing. The truth is, closure doesn't come from them texting back. It comes from you deciding it's over even when it still hurts. It's the moment you stop needing explanations to move forward. Because once you understand that some people leave because the story has reached its end, not because of unfinished business, you reclaim your power. So before you answer that late-night message or agree to catch up, ask yourself, are you seeking truth or comfort? Because one will set you free, and the other will drag you back into the same storm you barely survived. Real closure doesn't need their words. It needs your decision. Point 4, you miss the routine, not the relationship. One of the cruel tricks of the human mind is how it confuses familiarity with love. After a breakup, your brain doesn't crave the person. It craves the pattern. The morning texts, the goodnight messages, the constant updates, the daily rhythm that made you feel connected. When that disappears, it feels like withdrawal. You start mistaking the emptiness of change for the emptiness of loss. And that's when your mind whispers, maybe I should go back. But you're not missing them, you're missing the habit of them. Here's the truth. The comfort of routine can feel safer than the uncertainty of healing. Your body got used to their presence, their voice, their validation. It's chemical. When you stop getting that dopamine hit, your brain goes into panic mode, making you think the only way to feel whole again is to return to what's familiar. But comfort and compatibility are not the same thing. Just because something feels safe doesn't mean it's right. Fire feels warm before it burns you. You have to recognize that not every connection that feels natural is healthy. Sometimes the relationship you miss is just the structure that kept you distracted from your loneliness. When you text them, when you stalk their profile, when you replay memories, it's not because they're your soulmate. It's because you're trying to fill the silence they used to occupy. But that silence isn't your enemy. It's your detox. It's your mind recalibrating to a life that doesn't depend on someone else for emotional rhythm. The real test isn't how much you miss them. It's how you handle the emptiness they left. If your urge to get back together is stronger at night when you're bored, lonely, or scrolling through old photos, that's not love speaking. That's withdrawal talking. Love brings peace. Withdrawal brings restlessness. So, before you confuse comfort for connection, ask yourself, if you stripped away the routine, the calls, the texts, the habits, what's left? Do you miss the person or just the predictability they provided? Because if it's the routine you're chasing, you're not going back to love. You're going back to emotional autopilot. And autopilot never leads to growth. Sometimes missing them doesn't mean you should return. It just means you're finally remembering who you were before you forgot yourself in them. Point 5. You're afraid to start over. This is one of the most dangerous reasons people go back. It's not because they believe it'll work, but because they're terrified to begin again. You tell yourself it's love, but deep down it's fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of being alone, fear that you won't find someone who understands you the same way. You start convincing yourself that going back is easier than rebuilding, that familiar pain is better than unfamiliar peace. But fear disguised as love will keep you trapped in the same cycle forever. Here's the truth. Starting over isn't what breaks you, staying stuck does. The discomfort you feel after walking away is not proof you made a mistake. It's proof you're healing from dependency. You're detoxing from emotional repetition, from the comfort of knowing what to expect, even if what you expected was pain. That's why your mind romanticizes the past when things get quiet. It's not because your ex was the one. It's because your fear of being alone is louder than your belief that something better exists. But real growth happens when you step into that unknown space and stay there long enough to build something new. The same fear that tells you, you'll never find someone like them, is the same fear that once said, you'll never get over them. And look, you already did. You survived the heartbreak once. You can survive the silence that comes with moving forward. The moment you let fear dictate your choices, you hand your future to your past. You start calling comfort love and anxiety attachment. But peace doesn't come from avoiding loneliness. It comes from facing it head on and realizing it can't kill you. Once you stop fearing solitude, you stop tolerating chaos just to avoid it. That's when your standards rise, your clarity sharpens, and your heart finally begins to heal for real. So ask yourself honestly, are you thinking of going back because they're right for you, or because the idea of starting from zero feels too heavy? Because if it's fear keeping you tethered, you're not going back to love. You're retreating from growth. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to fix what's broken. It's to have the courage to rebuild yourself without them. Point 6. You're confusing loneliness with love. This is the quiet trap, the one that sneaks up on you late at night when the world is silent and your phone doesn't light up anymore. That's when your mind starts whispering, maybe I still love them. But what you're feeling isn't love. It's loneliness wearing love's mask. You're mistaking emptiness for emotion, absence for connection, and silence for a sign that you need them back. But loneliness doesn't mean you're supposed to go back. It means you're supposed to grow. The truth is, loneliness after a breakup isn't proof you made the wrong decision. It's proof you were used to defining yourself through someone else. You spent so long being part of a we that you forgot how to just be you. So when the noise stops, your brain interprets it as something missing. But what's missing isn't them. It's your comfort with yourself. Until you learn to fill your own space, every silence will sound like their name. Here's the dangerous part. Loneliness can trick you into believing anything. It'll make you romanticize their worst qualities, overlook your pain, and convince you that going back will make everything okay. But loneliness isn't a reason to return. It's a reminder to rebuild. Every time you rush back just to quiet the ache, you're teaching yourself that peace depends on another person, and that's how you lose your power. Real love never demands you abandon yourself to feel whole. It doesn't require you to fill your nights with old conversations or settle for old wounds just to avoid sitting with your thoughts. True strength is when you can look at the loneliness, feel it fully, and still not run back to what broke you. Because healing isn't about replacing them, it's about meeting yourself again. So before you confuse missing them with needing them, ask yourself, if you saw their true behavior clearly, without the filter of loneliness, would you still want them? Or do you just want someone to make the silence stop? Because when you start mistaking emptiness for love, you don't heal. You recycle pain. And the only thing worse than losing someone is losing yourself trying to feel less alone. Point 7, you're hoping they'll heal the same wound they caused. This is the most painful truth of all, and the hardest to admit. Deep down, you don't just want them back because you love them. You want them back because you want them to fix what they broke. You want them to finally see your worth, to apologize the right way, to love you the way they should have from the start. You want them to heal the wound they created, as if their validation will erase the pain they left behind. But the same hands that cut you can't be the ones to stitch you back together. You think closure will come when they change, when they confess, when they finally treat you the way you deserved all along. But that moment never really satisfies you. It only reopens the scar. Because deep down, it's not about them seeing your worth. It's about you remembering it without their approval. Waiting for someone who hurt you to heal you is like standing in the fire and hoping it'll stop burning if you just stay still long enough. It won't. Here's the harsh truth. People rarely return out of growth. They return out of guilt, comfort, or loneliness. They might say everything you once needed to hear, but it's not always because they've changed. It's because they miss the version of you that made them feel better about themselves. They want peace for their conscience, not necessarily peace for your heart. If you let them back in, hoping they'll fix what they broke, you're reopening the same wound and calling it healing. That's not love. That's emotional dependency disguised as hope. Real healing begins when you stop expecting closure from the person who caused the pain. You stop hoping they'll rewrite the story, and instead, you start writing a new one yourself. You realize they can't undo the damage. They were the lesson, not the solution. And the moment you take back that power, the wound starts to close, not because they came back, but because you finally stopped waiting for them to. So ask yourself, do you want them, or do you just want the pain to make sense? Because if you're still trying to get peace from the person who broke it, you'll never find it. The real closure is understanding they can't fix what they shattered, and loving yourself enough to stop asking them to try. Conclusion. Now you see it clearly. Getting back together isn't always love. Sometimes it's a trap disguised as comfort. You weren't longing for the person. You were longing for the feeling. You were hoping the memory could overwrite the pain. The apology could erase the past. The routine could protect you from the unknown. But the truth is brutal and freeing at the same time. If they were meant to stay, you wouldn't have had to let them go. People who truly grow don't need a reunion to prove it. Their absence speaks through their silence, and their change speaks through consistency, not promises. Every time you go back, you teach your heart that pain equals love, that chaos equals passion, that loneliness means loss. But it doesn't. Loneliness is the space where healing happens. It's where you meet the version of yourself that doesn't need fixing, only rediscovering. So don't chase the closure they'll never give. Don't confuse fear with love or nostalgia with fate. The story already ended. It's time to stop rereading the same chapter and start writing your next one. Because one day you'll look back and realize that letting them go wasn't losing something real. It was finally making space for something that is.